Burmese was written by George Orwell, and this name is a pseudonym of Eric Arthur Blair, and he was born in June 25, 1903, in Motihari, Bengal, India, and he died on January 21, 1950, in London, England. The change in name corresponded to a profound shift in Orwell's lifestyle, in which he changed from a pillar of the British imperial establishment into a literary and political rebel. His father was a minor British official in the Indian Civil Service. His mother, of French extraction, was the daughter of an unsuccessful teak merchant in Myanmar. He was sent in 1911 to a preparatory boarding school on the Sussex coast, where he was distinguished among the other boys by his poverty and his intellectual brilliance. He grew up a morose, withdrawn, eccentric boy, and he was later to tell of the miseries of those boys' years in his posthumously published autobiographical essay, Such Were the Joys, in 1953. Orwell won scholarships to two of England's leading schools, Winchester and Eton, and chose Eton. He stayed from 1917 to 1920. Aldous Huxley was one of his masters, and it was at Eton that he published his first writing in college periodicals. Well, instead of accepting a scholarship to university, Orwell decided to follow family tradition and, in 1922, went to Burma as Assistant District Superintendent in the Indian Imperial Police. He served in a number of country stations and at first appeared to be a model imperial servant. Yet, from boyhood, he had wanted to become a writer, and when he realized how much against their will the Burmese were ruled by the British, he felt increasingly ashamed of his role as a colonial police officer. Later, he was to recount his experiences and his reactions to imperial rule in his novel Burmese Days, and in two brilliant autobiographical sketches, Shoot an Elephant and A Hanging, classics of expository prose. On January 1, 1928, he took the decisive step of resigning from the imperial police. Already in the autumn of 1927, he had started on a course of action that was to shape his character as a writer. Having felt guilty that the barriers of race had prevented his mingling with the Burmese, he thought he could expiate some of his guilt by immersing himself in the life of the poor and outcast people of Europe. Burmese Days, which was published in 1934, established the pattern of his subsequent fiction in its portrayal of a sensitive, conscientious, and emotionally isolated individual who is at odds with an oppressive or dishonest social environment. Orwell's revulsion against imperialism led not only to his personal rejection of the bourgeois lifestyle, but to political orientation as well. Immediately after returning from Burma, he called himself an anarchist, and continued to do so for several years. During the 1930s, however, he began to consider himself a socialist, though he was too liberal that he never declared himself as a communist.
The story takes place around 1920 and 1926 in Copado, Burma, or also known as Myanmar, which at the time was under England's control. It narrates the story of John Flory, a 35-year-old Englishman living in Burma alone and friendless amongst other Englishmen, and his curiosity and respect towards the natives. The story focuses on the temple of Dr. Baraswamy, a friend of Flory and a native of Burma, and his attempt to join the English club, since he considered the English being greater and a more civilized culture than his own. Upal Kin was our magistrate very high ranked amongst British that did not want Dr. Baraswamy joining the British club, and used the friendship between Baraswamy and Flory to try to ruin the doctor's reputation. Later on, Flory meets with an English girl named Elizabeth, who he met by rescuing from a buffalo while wandering through his uncle's garden, and thought would be the person he had long been waiting for to love and be loved, to share his interest about the natives, though Elizabeth was only in for Flory's high rankings, as she continues to date him and nearly married, if it hadn't been for an earthquake which happened just before he asked her. Elizabeth leaves Flory to go with a man called Beral, who was higher ranked and richer than Flory, and whose guardians see as a better prospect for Elizabeth to marry. Continuing, a rebellion against the government breaks out on a small village, to which Yupo King blames on Verasami for organizing, but goes wrong and ends up showing as if Verasami and Flory had controlled down, which give them high reputation inside the English club. Immediately after, Beryl leaves Elizabeth and goes back to Flory once again, to which he is now getting married. Yupo King makes up a scene with an old mistress of Flory's in the wedding, which makes Elizabeth mad and abandons Flory for a second time, and he shoots himself, to which people claim was accidental. At the end, Dr. Ramaswamy is sent to a different district and is demoted, and Yupo King dies of an apoplexy without being able to pay off by doing good deeds according to his religion, to which he feared he will incarnate as an inferior animal for being bad in life.
The first and most immediate theme in the book is racism. There are several instances where each character's point of view on racism affects their actions. A prime example comes with the relationship between Flory and Elizabeth, as Flory is against racism, while Elizabeth is fundamentally racist. Also, Eli's extreme racism is a big factor in Flory and Veraswamy's downfall. An interesting thing in this book is that, in the friendship between Flory and Veraswamy, they both act as the devil's advocate, as Flory, an Englishman, supports the Burmese, while Veraswamy, who is Burmese, supports the English. An example of this theme is the following quote: "To talk, simply to talk. It sounds so little, and how much it is. When you have existed to the brink of middle age in bitter loneliness, among people to whom your true opinion on every subject on earth is blasphemy, the need to talk is the greatest of all needs." This quote exemplifies how Flory wants to express his inner thoughts, but finds himself unable to do so, as his beliefs conflict with those of the people that surround him. The next theme is related to the previous one. Identity and individual perspective play huge roles in the novel, as each character acts according to his own beliefs and interests. An example is how Cain attempts to become a member of the club, and then redeem himself by doing positive actions while in the club, or how Flory befriends Burmese people and tries to defend him. But it is a corrupting thing to live one's real life in secret. One should live with the stream of life, not against it. It would be better to be the thickest-skulled Puka Sahib who ever hiccuped our 40-year son than to live silent, alone, consoling oneself in secret, sterile words. In this quote, Flory expresses his desire to talk about his feelings and opinions with other people, and how they are not in line with other Englishmen. The last theme is nationalism, as the different views of the characters on the occupation of Burma conflict with each other, with Flory's perspective believing that the Burmese people should have the right to govern themselves, and that British imperialism is wrong. Living a lie the whole time, the lie that we're here to uplift our poor black brothers, instead of rob them. It corrupts us. It corrupts us in ways that you can't imagine. This quote exemplifies how Flory believes that imperialism is wrong, and it should be stopped. This is going to be it for this analysis. Thank you for your attention.